Welcome to Doing the Dang Thing podcast. I am your host, Jill Schmeeding, and this podcast is all about helping everyday women play big and aspire for more. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I really appreciate it. You know, every single month I have a goal where I want to interview an individual who is playing big in their life, right? I've always said one of my goals for this podcast is to give space and to provide a platform for a woman who is playing big in her life. And I had that interview all queued up, ready to go. And then I unfortunately had some technical difficulties. Yes, it happens to the best of us. And unfortunately, that means that interview will be airing next month. And so I wanted to come on tonight to talk to you about a way that I have recently played big in my life. And I've said before many times, and I will repeat this many more times, playing big looks different for everyone. And so I think it's important that I share this story for you tonight because one, it is very recent, and two, it really was a big, meaningful moment, I guess, for me, right? And so I'm going to, share a little story with you. I recently went on my first camping trip. This last weekend, actually. Went on my first camping trip. Yes, I'm in my 40s. I've been out in Denver for 9 years. You're probably wondering, how has this happened? Well, I just didn't grow up with a family that went camping. And I have never went camping with an actual tent and a sleeping bag and all the things until this last weekend. And I will say one thing that I want to just make note of is I think timing is everything. We've said that before. I think it's a good reminder, just like if something hasn't happened in your life that you're still wanting to have happen, remember, timing is everything. And I think that this trip that I went on with these three other individuals was the perfect timing for me and my first camping trip. It was spectacular. It was absolutely spectacular for so many reasons. And I could sit here and talk to you for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and probably tell you all the stories. However, I am going to shorten that, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit of the highlights. And like I said, one way that I played really big. Okay. So we decided to go on a river float trip. There was one woman who organized the entire thing. It was like a guided river float trip, is pretty much what it was, but it was all friends. There was 4 women, me being one of them, that went on this trip. And we had 2 boats, 2 kayaks. And when I say kayak, everyone's like, no, that's more of a canoe. It's a mix between a canoe and a kayak, okay, inflatable. And then we had a bigger boat that fit 2 people with a whole bunch of gear, and it was more of a rectangular shape. And so we had those 3 boats. We had 4 women. We had 65 plus miles in 48 hours that we floated. It was like 65.47 miles that we floated or paddled down in 48 hours. Endless amounts of smiles, okay? You know, when you find your tribe, this is the thing. You know you have found your tribe when you can be your complete self and be accepted, like complete self. And I don't know how many times in my life I have felt that I can be completely myself, right, around new friends. Because I think sometimes it just takes years and years and years of developing a friendship where you feel like you can truly be yourself. But I have found my tribe, and these women have provided a safe space for me to be my complete and true self. And I felt that on this trip. And I want that for every single one of you listening out there, that you have a tribe in which you can be your complete and true self, because it is so magical. It's so magnificent. It's so freeing and liberating. Like truly freeing and liberating, right? And so that is just one awesome lesson that I learned during this trip. Okay. Now, how I played big, well, I have kayaked before in reservoirs around the Denver area, but I've never kayaked down a river with a current. Okay. So this was definitely a very chill river, no whitewater rapids or anything like that. But there was a current. It was moving around maybe like 3 to 4 miles an hour, give or take. I don't know, 3 to 5 miles an hour, depending on the wind. And we had to make our way down the river. And so we also had to find camp. Don't get me wrong. We had to find camp. Well, the water line was 20 feet higher than normal. 20 feet higher than normal. So there was a lot of greenery along the water. Those were like the tops of the trees that were along the bank, what would have been the bank a few years ago. So all the areas where you would have just kind of floated up to a sandbar, it was underwater by 20 feet. So we had to hunt and peck for some camping grounds. And the first day when it came time to find those camping grounds, I think this was probably the biggest thing, the biggest kind of lesson and the biggest playing big moment. Maybe my girls would disagree, but I think it was scary for me. And and I want to tell you the story about it. So if I can paint this picture, okay? So we're floating down the river. We're in the middle of the river, and two of the gals were like, we're going to go ahead. We're going to go up ahead, and we're going to find where we can camp, okay? So you guys go to the sides of the river and hold on to the tree branches so your boats don't move. Fine. Me and the other gal, we did just that, went onto the side of the river, held some tree branches, while two of the other girls went up ahead in the rectangular sized boat and started to kind of hunt and peck for some camping grounds. Kind of like an opening in the tree line, because then further back was ground where we could then float up upon, right? Well, they found it, and I was pretty close to where they found the opening in the trees, but I was on the other side of the river. So that means I had to get my boat from one side of the river to the other and through the opening so that I didn't pass the opening and just keep floating downstream, right? And so one of the girls was just like, okay, let go of the branches and come on over and just keep paddling. Now, I also know, by the way, again, this was my first time on a river, first time, going down in a kayak like this with a current. And so I was just like, okay. And they were so good. Each of the individuals were so good about telling me, like, point your boat to the exact opposite side of the shore, or the opposite side of the river. Like, keep pointing it that ways, because the current is going to automatically carry you down stream a little bit. And that ways I can find, I won't pass up the opening. But I was a little scared. I wasn't going to lie. I was pretty close to them. So that means I had to paddle really hard and be very, very diligent about keeping my boat geared towards the other side of the shore and not have it pointing downstream. So that's exactly what happened. I mean, they were like, come on over, and just keep paddling. And I was like, oh, snap. Here we go. So I let go of the tree branches and I started paddling. I was paddling. And then I kind of panicked because I felt like my boat was moving downstream quite quickly. And I said, I can't do it. I can't do it. I might have yelled a couple explicit words. And all I remember hearing on the other side of the tree or other side of the river was, keep paddling. You got this. You got this. Just keep paddling. And I got mad. I got more scared than mad. But that fear made me sit up a little bit more in my boat and kind of engage my core. And I dug that paddle into that water so hard and so fast on each side of my boat that I was just like, I am not missing this and going to go float downstream, right? Because then I just felt like in my mind, what was going through my head was, oh my God, if I miss this opening, then all the girls are going to have to keep going downstream and find camp, or I'm just going to be too further. I can't, it would have been really hard to get that boat upstream. That's the thing. It would have been really, really hard. And I think one of the girls was like, oh no, you would have just used the trees and kind of pulled yourself back up again, which is fine, but that's not something I really wanted to do. And at the time I didn't really know that was an option, right? It was like make the hole or make the opening or miss it altogether. Those were my two options. Because again, I'm an absolute thinker. It's like black and white. I always have been like that. So I just remember hearing on the other side of the river, my girl yelling, keep paddling. You can do this. You can do this. And I was like, I can't do this. And she just kept saying, keep paddling. And I made it. I made it. I think I ran into the trees, like barely made the opening and kind of ran into the trees a little bit, which I did quite a few times throughout the whole trip. But I made it. And I think the lesson for me, the one thing is this: I played big because I let go of the tree and I tried, right? I attempted to get across the river. I knew that was my only option, but let's be honest, like I could have done a lot of things, but I tried. I let go of the trees and I attempted. And I was successful. But before I was successful, I had a whole bunch of negative self-talk. Like a bunch of negative self-talk. And I've kind of been contemplating why that is. Why do I always self-doubt? I have so much self-doubt. Why do I always doubt myself? And I talked to one of my girlfriends about that on the trip. I was just like, I really didn't think I could do that. And she was like, but you did. You did do it. And she's right. And I was like, why do I always tell myself I can't do something? And I think that's just, if I'm being honest with you, I think that's just a lot of from trauma, from, growing up in certain situations as a teenager. I think it's in my inner child comes out when I'm fearful. And so she's still getting reparented as we speak to this day. I am, as an adult, reparenting my inner child. And I think that's being fixed, quote unquote, being healed. I think healed is a better word, slowly but surely, and it's going to take a long time. But also these moments like this where I do let go of the tree branches and I make my way across the river and I actually succeed, also kind of keeps filling up that bucket of like, nope, you've got this, you can do this, and like kind of emptying the bucket of self-doubt one drop at a time. And then also just like having, and this is like the one thing that I just want to like really point out in this episode, is having people in your life that are on your side, right? People that are cheering you on. Having this exceptional community of people that want to see you succeed. Like that is so important. And it was from the first moment that I said yes to this camping trip, and to the very last moment, right, when we all went home, drove home, everything, these 3 ladies that I went on this trip with were absolutely in my corner 100% of the time. 100% of the time. And like cheering me on, encouraging me. And every single time I had a question, like how, they even like coached me. This is how you paddle to do this. And this is how you paddle to do that. And when I said, I don't know what I'm doing, like, how do I fix this? We're running into some trees or we're running into some whatever, in the river, we're going towards the bank. And it's just, one of the girls was like, oh, yep, paddle, flip it upside down, scoop the water, do wide this or deep this, and they just coached me like along the whole time. And then at the very end, I heard from one of the ladies and she was just like, you were so good. She was like, you were so good on this trip. You asked for what you needed. You asked for help when you needed it. You took our suggestions very well when we gave them, which I did, and I welcomed them, but just asking for help when I need it. And I felt it was so good. It was so good. And I think that's just the biggest lesson that I want to share with you. I have a million stories, of course. And if you want to see a few of the pictures, I'm going to be posting them on my Instagram page, The Accountabilitist. Actually, it's probably going to be on my personal one, but I'll post some on the Accountabilitist page as well to go along with this episode. But you can follow me both at Jill Schmeeding and the accountabilist. So I'll put both of those in the show notes if you want to follow me on Instagram and see some pictures. And I think those are just the lessons that I want to share with you. It's kind of a quick and dirty, but having people in your corner, like we need that in life, having a community of people that are rooting for you, cheering for you, who believe that you can do it. But when you doubt yourself, right? Because we're all going to be doubting ourselves here and there, but having that community of people that believe in you, that is what I experienced this last weekend on my first camping trip. And I think it will have an impact on my life from here on out, just because I think it's really, really awesome to go through something like that and to experience people who I have only known these women for less than a year. Some of them just a few months. And they were my biggest cheerleaders, biggest supporters, and just really embraced me for who I am. Boy, it's just such a change from elementary school, when you hang out with girls. And I know as elementaries can be kind of a tough time in life, a tough season, but I did get picked on. I did get made fun of. I did get teased. I did get bullied. And to be in a group of women who you don't feel unsafe is awesome. It's an awesome feeling. And I would encourage any of you out there who are listening right now, if you don't have that, find a way to find it. And all I will say is, if you're like, yeah, that's easy for you to say, I put myself out there all the time. I put myself out there. I go to events where I don't know anyone to meet people. And that is how I found my tribe, is by putting myself out there and meeting new people. And eventually it all just came together. And that's the story I wanted to share with you today. How I played big last weekend by camping. First of all, just going out and camping. Second of all, by letting go of the tree branch and making my way across the river. And when I doubted myself, I had friends in my corner that were cheering me on from the other side of the river saying, you can do this. Just keep paddling, which is such a great metaphor for life, right? No matter what you're going through right now, what season you're in, if you're looking for a new job, I've got a couple girlfriends that are looking for new jobs, new careers. I've got girlfriends that are looking for good men. Oh my goodness. Yes, I have lots of good girlfriends looking for good men. And I just want to be one of those friends cheering them on, right? Supporting them, saying, you got this. Just keep paddling. Just keep paddling, and you will get to the other side. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Doing the Dang Thing podcast. I really, really appreciate it, your support. And like I said, I love interviewing women who are playing big, whatever that looks like. I want to hear from you. And if you're interested, in the show notes, I have a link to my podcast guest form. Please fill it out. I would love to hear from you. I would love to have you on the show. Thank you so much. I encourage you to, keep paddling, because eventually you will get to the other side. Thanks so much, everyone.